All right, for months you have heard me call right here on this program the Mueller investigation a witch hunt. You've heard the president say it. You've heard me say it's the biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in modern American history. Tonight, we're going to break down the scandal item by item, step by step, based on three serious issues: the abusively biased partisan makeup of the political investigation, the focus of the investigation on a single man. We don't have equal justice under the law rather than an actual crime. And third, what is a rampant double standard present in our justice system today? All right, we get started. On May 17, 2017, Robert Mueller was tasked with investigating fears that the country of Russia interfered with our presidential election the year before. Now, given this was a hotly contested subject, well, you think it would obviously be a politically charged issue. You would expect Robert Mueller probably to be careful to appoint a team of nonpartisan investigators that didn't have any conflicts of interest. Sadly, the exact opposite happened. His first lead investigator, the now fired Peter Strzok, the same guy that said that Hillary Clinton should win this election 100 million to 0. By the way, the same guy that said, all sorts of things about Donald Trump and talked about an insurance policy just in case he did win. Now, his lead prosecutor, meaning Mueller's Andrew Weissman, the guy the New York Times calls Mueller's pit bull, actually attended Hillary Clinton's election night party. Well, he's objective. Weissman also praised Acting Attorney General Sally Yates when she refused to follow orders from her boss, the President of the United States. Mueller also appointed a woman. Her name is Jeannie Ray. She previously served as an attorney for Hillary Clinton. That's right, at the Clinton Foundation. Now, this looks really, really bad, and it's only the tip of the iceberg, because Mueller literally filled his team of so-called objective investigators with major Democratic donors, no Republicans, people who donated tens of thousands of dollars to the Clintons, the Obamas, and others. 14 of the 17 special counsel prosecutors registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. And at this point, Robert Mueller might as well have hired Maxine Waters and Elizabeth Warren. He's not even trying to appear fair. And it's no wonder that from the very beginning, this investigation centered around one man only, and that's your president, Donald Trump. It's the opposite of how our justice system is supposed to work, which brings us to part two of our witch hunt analysis. Remember in the old Soviet Union, they investigated people and then they found crimes. In America, we're supposed to investigate crimes and find the perpetrators. And sadly, here we are investigating a man, not a crime. Look at Michael Flynn. Look at Papadopoulos. Look at Manafort, Stone, Jerome Corsi. They share only one thing in common: connections to Donald Trump. Flynn, Papadopoulos pled guilty to process crimes caused by the investigation itself. And in the case of Flynn, the FBI didn't even think he was lying, but he ran out of money, had to sell his house, and I'm pretty certain that his son was threatened to be investigated if he didn't sign the papers. And for example, Manafort's crimes, nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with collusion. You have issues that were previously resolved that date back to 2007, loan applications and taxes. And no matter what Mueller throws at these men, it doesn't matter, hours of interrogations, threats, life in prison, well, he's always offering the get-out-of-jail-free card if they say what Mueller and his team want them to say. By the way, with no evidence whatsoever needed of any Trump-Russia collusion. Nothing has been uncovered, 0. Even CNN's fake news, fake Jake Tapper admitted there's literally no crime here. You know why? Because there isn't. Take a look.
So this is clearly not welcome news for the president. I don't want to pretend that it is. But once again, I look at these documents and I don't see any evidence of conspiracy between members of the Trump team and members of the Russian government to interfere in the election.
No conspiracy, no collusion, no crime. What we have, though, is a political persecution. By the way, this started way before Mueller. Now, breaking tonight, The Hill's John Solomon is reporting during the presidential election, Donald Trump's allies were constantly targeted by our own intelligence apparatus. At least 6 people, he's reporting tonight, with long-established ties to the FBI or U.S. Western intelligence agencies made entrees to key figures in the Trump business organization or his presidential campaign. This all happening between March and October of 2016 in the lead up to the election. And Solomon continues. Nearly all of the contacts involve the same overture, a discussion about possible dirt, stolen emails, harmful to Hillary Clinton, or unsolicited business in London or Moscow. And get this, according to the report, these contacts were likely efforts by Obama's DOJ. Why? To bolster claims made in Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for phony lies dossier, the lying dossier put together by Christopher Steele. He doesn't even stand by his own dossier. He can't corroborate anything in it or verify anything in it. This is huge news because they're plotting, planning, and scheming. And it brings us to the third issue in our analysis, the disgusting, despicable two-tiered system of justice. That shouldn't be in the United States of America, because in 2016, the Clinton campaign, they funneled millions and millions of dollars through a law firm, Perkins Coie, in order to hire an op research firm, in order to hire an ex-foreign spy that had deep Russia connections to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. That spy, Christopher Steele, puts together wholly uncorroborated, unverified dossier full of Russian lies, probably straight from the Kremlin. And instead of investigating the obvious collusion, Obama's DOJ, Comey's FBI, they used that dirty campaign op research. They never verified, they never corroborated as the very basis to open investigation into Donald Trump. And by the way, get deep into the Trump campaign by committing fraud multiple times on the FISA court to get warrants against the Trump campaign associate. That's Carter Page. They used it in a coordinated leak strategy, and they actually talk about it. Why would they have a leak strategy? To manipulate the American voters. And today, it's the foundation of what is Robert Mueller's witch hunt. This gross, despicable, double standard, it doesn't end there. Remember Uranium One. Let's talk about this. Do we really care about Russian interference in America? Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, one of 9 people, including Eric Holder, signing off on sending 20% of our uranium, which is the foundational material for nuclear weapons, to the hostile regime of Russia, the hostile actor Vladimir Putin. In 2015, the New York Times reported, quote, shortly after the Russians announced their intention to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One, well, former President Bill Clinton received $500,000 in Moscow for a speech from a Russian investment bank. Yep, the same bank with links to the Kremlin that was promoting Uranium One stock. And it gets even more sketchy. During the transfer of Uranium One to Russia, the Clinton Foundation, they received millions and millions of dollars from the very people involved in the deal. And by the way, in the lead up to this, the FBI director at the time was Robert Mueller. Well, we had an FBI informant inside of Putin's network right here in America. And he was telling the FBI about what he was witnessing. Serious, serious issues. Here's what he told me when I had an opportunity to talk to this informant.
And at some point, you became aware that Russia wanted to get a foothold in the uranium industry and that they were going to look at this conglomeration known, what we now know as Uranium One, and that deal was going to give them that foothold if, in fact, it was approved by 9 government agencies.
Yes, sir. There was no question about it.
Yeah. And the FBI knew that?
The Bureau knew it. The Uranium One position was a part of a long-term strategy, a 4-tier strategy by the Russians.
Were they telling you that they had confidence that Clinton would sign off on this deal?
Absolute confidence.
Did they have confidence that Obama would sign off on this deal?
They were quite sure that Obama and the administration, who they had deemed and labeled as being very weak multiple times, would respond favorably.
So before they approved it, that informant described issues involving bribery, extortion, kickbacks, money laundering, Putin's network inside America to get a foothold in our uranium industry, the foundational material for nuclear weapons. By the way, Bob Mueller happened to be the FBI director at the time. He was the one being informed. Why would they ever approve any such deal like that? So is Robert Mueller's merry band of Democratic donors, are they investigating that seedy link between the Clintons and Russia? And by the way, of course not. What about Mueller? He was the FBI director. That was his guy that had infiltrated Putin's network in the United States. Maybe he could be investigated. It has to do with Russia, nuclear materials. Why did they ever let that happen? That's because we now live in a two-tier justice system. One where President Trump and anybody around him are aggressively pursued for months on end by a team of Democrats masquerading as investigators. The Clintons, any other Democrat, they get away scot-free. Every American should be very concerned and worried by what is a completely unfair precedent in this country. And sadly, most of the mainstream media, they are so left-wing in their partisanship, so filled with anti-Trump rage every second, minute, hour of every day that they're literally cheering Mueller every single move he makes with giddy anticipation and excitement, trembling with joy and happiness, sort of like Chris Matthews getting a thrill up his leg watching Obama. Every time they hear the word Russia, 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 even if Mueller's just indicting, intelligence officials from Russia that will never be brought to the U.S. to be put on trial, ever. It's just to mention the name. Watch this.
This guilty plea yesterday was really an early Christmas present for all of the congressional committees that are investigating various elements of the Russia case here.
I still am of the mind that this president may not serve out his term.
From our reporting, one thing is clear. He has been knocked off balance here completely.
The question becomes, when do Republicans start to turn on Trump? Because that's the only thing that's going to get Trump out of office.
And if this were a mafia investigation, Trump would be indicted under RICO. No question about it.
I spoke with a source who is very close to Michael Cohen, who said to me today, in no uncertain terms, Michael has the goods. He has extremely valuable information.
You have somebody who's in Trump's innermost circle for so long, Chris, who's known as his fixer, who knows where the bodies are buried.
This is not the way a high elected official is supposed to talk. It's the way guys talk to me when they're wearing orange jumpsuits and explaining why they got done wrong.
NPR also today trying to link Donald Trump Jr. to the Cohen revelations from yesterday, all but calling him a liar. But yeah, hours later, NPR was forced to backtrack in an editor's note, writing they mischaracterized Don Jr.'s statement. These people are not looking out for you, the American people. They're looking ahead to the 2020 election. They're rooting for the president to be delegitimized, to fail, no matter the consequences, no matter the upset to the entire country, not helping the American people in any way. Joining us now, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, who, by the way, on Hannity.com, brand new opioid documentary. It is really well done. My radio producer, Linda McLaughlin, and her. It's so well done. I have a chance to watch it. Congratulations. And also from the Hill, John Solomon. John, let's start with your breaking report. So we have all these entrees into all these Trump people just before the election. It sounds like the whole thing was thought out, planned out, and set up. Explain.
Yeah, and you know, the origin of this story, Sean, is last Tuesday night when I was on your show, you had Congressman Nunes on just before us, and I was listening. He said something I had not heard in all the months that we've been working on this case. He said, beyond the Steele dossier, there was a very troubling effort to come up with other evidence that would corroborate the Steele dossier that was suspect, and it was just as bad evidence, and it might have also included exculpatory information that had been hidden. So I went back and started digging, and this is what I found. 6 different people inject themselves into the Trump organization between March and October that have direct ties to the FBI or U.S. intelligence. 2 Russians inject themselves into the operation during that time. Both are here in the United States only on a U.S. Justice Department parole visa. That's another fact. 2 more Western intelligence or Western diplomats intersect or start relationships with key people in the Trump organization, and all have the same overture. Either I've got dirt on Hillary Clinton or I got a nice deal for you. Would you like to talk to me? it looks like a targeted operation to start to probe whether there was something going on here. And here's the most troubling thing. When you go back and look at Devin Nunes's comments on your show last Tuesday, he said this evidence was worse in quality and perhaps also had more exculpatory information, and yet it wasn't disclosed properly to the FISA court. We may have two corrupt lines of evidence flowing in to try to justify this investigation.
So then, Sarah, we would have the dossier, which is in one corner. Then we have the spies that we already knew in the campaign. Then you've got intel people secretly trying to basically infiltrate and, I don't know if the word tempt, entice Trump, people close to Trump. How would you characterize it?
I would characterize it as if they didn't have any evidence of a crime and they're sending all of these informants in, allegedly, these 6 informants, and they're enticing them with real estate deals, or I've got information on Hillary Clinton that's going to help your campaign. I would call that a setup, Sean. Straight and simple. Look, if they're collecting information, by the way, let's not forget, they were also collecting information on Americans through unmaskings. And John and I broke those stories well over a year and a half ago. There was over 300 that Samantha Power alone collected, and we still don't have information on that. So they weaponize the intelligence system and the intelligence apparatus. They go after specific targets within the Trump campaign. Here's a question that I'd like to ask, and I think the FBI needs to answer. Did they debrief the Hillary Clinton campaign? Were there any Russians attempting to target the Hillary Clinton campaign? I find it very difficult to believe that the Russians only tried to reach out to the Trump campaign. And if they did the FBI debrief them on that? Because that would answer a lot of questions for us.
If
they didn't do it for Trump and they did it for Hillary.
Then how is it possible the whole dossier issue that Clinton paid for, by the way, it was disseminated before the election to influence the American people? I'm sure there are people that probably read about hookers in the bed in Moscow. I'll be a little easier tonight. That probably said, I'm not voting for that guy. But those were all paid for Russian lies. If they cared about Russian interference, why didn't that come up? Or John, Uranium One, where they, we all, you know, Sarah knows, I know, the informant. We've all spoken to the informant describing kickbacks, bribery, money laundering, extortion, Putin's thugs in America, and they still got approval, and the Clinton Foundation still got their money in terms of a kickback to the foundation.
I think there's growing evidence, Sean, that the Clinton political opposition research effort was an effort to make sure that Hillary Clinton's vulnerabilities on Moscow would be off limits in the election by putting Trump on the defensive. And from that, we put an entire criminal investigation in 2 years of our country with still no evidence of collusion. At this point, we have a few people pleading guilty to lying about unrelated events in that. It's a real travesty to have gone through that.
Taxi medallions, and people not paying their taxes.
Now, I got a little bit of breaking news for you.
Get out of jail free cards, but
a little bit of breaking news.
Go into the Uranium One and the dossier issue. You got the last word.
Oh, okay. Well, Sean, let me tell you this. When it comes to Mueller, we know this for a fact, that William Campbell, and I talked to him today, I spoke with him, and he said, look, he was informed of everything about Rosatom, about the uranium deal. He was in charge of the FBI then. So we have to ask ourselves this. Where are we going from here? We have so much evidence on the other side. Is there going to be a special counsel investigating the other side? What we've seen in Hillary Clinton, what we've seen with our weaponization of our intelligence apparatus? When is that going to happen?
I got it. All right. Now, there's something percolating that probably will break Monday. Do either one, you're both smiling, do either one of you want to give the audience, well, a little heads up?
I'll give you some breaking news right now, Sean. Just 2 hours ago, federal prosecutors assigned to John Huber, the U.S. attorney investigating the Clintons, reached out to a whistleblower in the Clinton Foundation. The first time we've seen contact between a Clinton Foundation whistleblower and that particular federal office. That just happened tonight.
Are you talking about the one whose home was raided?
No, this is a different whistleblower that you might learn. You'll learn a lot more about on Monday, I bet you.
All right, we'll learn that on Monday. Sarah, last word. What is it?
I
Give
just
us
say
a
we have to
preview
keep
of Monday's
our eyes...
coming attraction.
I think we've got a lot to look forward to on Monday, Sean, and I think that the American people are going to see that there was happening behind the scenes at the FBI as well as the Department of Justice, and Michael Horowitz have been doing a very deep dive into this, and there's going to be a lot of breaking news in the next month and the months to come.
Amazing, the year of the boomerang. We were right all along. Continues. Thank you both. More reports on Monday. All right, when we come back.